subscribe on Twitch. Troy just hit his 5th month. We appreciate that. We're live out usually on Tuesdays, 9 p.m., live.mnlpodcast.com to get to the Twitch channel real quick and easy. Interested, I would say playoffs or the finals are coming up. We'd love to have a couple people that actually aren't in, and that would actually help us out quite a bit. Get rid of that whole.
Sorry for being here. I'm sorry for being in.
We appreciate it, but you know, obviously you're going to be a little partial. We'd love to get some impartial people to kind of analyze the finals, but we do love and appreciate that you're willing to come into the well and help out. So yeah, like we said before, we have Mr. Joey Cubes. I actually don't know your official last name. I just always hear Ty call you that. So welcome.
Yeah, officially it is Kubera.
Kubera.
Yeah.
Clausenite.
Yep, right around the corner. I think less than a quarter mile. I could have walked, but I had Ty pick me up.
Yeah. Mean streets of Clausen. You never know what could happen.
Build it in whenever you can.
Yeah.
With the refs.
Yeah.
So few things for you, or let's get into the news real quick. I forgot to mention this last week, but we did have a group of about 20 guys on the 29th of February actually go volunteer down in Detroit. MNL Cares. Ty, I think you were there, weren't you?
I was. It was a good time. I volunteered a few times in my life, believe it or not. And that was one of the most, I enjoyed it the most. I felt like we were productive and we did a lot. We stocked shelves. We stocked there's an area where the clothes are sold, but we did a lot of organizing of the clothes and getting them into the front room, making sure everything's in the right place. And we had about 20 people. It was a good time. My kids were there. Troy was there. Troy's daughter was there. A lot of good representation, except for the Ducks. And I think the Ducks weren't there, and it just shows what a terrible organization they've been from the beginning, and probably explains why they missed the playoffs, because they couldn't even bring anybody down to represent themselves to give to the poor. So how can you love yourself if you can't even love anyone else? It's a sad state of affairs, but that's old news. We already saw that, but I wasn't shocked when I didn't see any Ducks participate.
This White Tower narrative is great.
Yeah, I was just saying, I could tell Hedis was just looking to speak there. It was any second. He just looked like he's like, to be fair, it's really good that we were able to do that. I'm glad we were able to get 20 people. It was a little bit late notice, but people did step up and were able to get out. That's a great thing. Hopefully we'll do, maybe one a year, maybe 2 a year. I don't know, some good planning. Sounds like it was a good place, good time, other places, possibilities, but if that one was good, we could stay there as well. So, as we said, Mr. Joey Cubes, one of the MNL refs, is here. So we're going to spend a little bit of time over with you. First question over there is, how long have you been a hockey ref?
My first season was the 2015-2016 season.
How did you get into it?
I'd always been, after playing, hanging around the game, started with coaching. When I was at Michigan State, I coached the Okemos high school team, so I did that for a couple of years. Came back here, I coached some high school around here, and then was doing the Troy JV team at one point, and then I just didn't really like the schedule, late nights, practices, had to be there all the time, couldn't really call off, and then one of my friends told me about getting into officiating, and so I got in and liked the schedule a lot more. Got to pick your assignments a little bit more, and so that's kind of how I got into that.
So based on you saying you're doing all this coaching, all that, you were, I'm assuming, a decent level hockey player then?
I played, I grew up, I played through the Birmingham system. I played for Birmingham High School. I played 1 year of club hockey at the University of South Carolina, and then I transferred to Michigan State. Didn't pursue anything there with that club team. They were pretty good. But always played, and then right from there went into coaching, was coaching at the high school level, never got into the AAA level, but always been around the game.
And how many nights a week do you typically ref? It seems like obviously Mondays, and then do you do another night or two or more?
Yeah, I mean, I used to do a lot more. Now, once I have a son, he's 2 years old, so that kind of slowed things down. But I've got you guys on Monday nights. I've got this, I don't know, they've got to be 50 and older on Sunday nights at Royal Oak. And then
I think my uncle plays in that league.
Good, yeah. They've had that ice for a long time. And then on Tuesdays I have this league. I think they call it 50 and over, but it's got to be 65 plus. But I do them on Tuesdays, and then I sprinkle in some youth games throughout the rest of the week and the weekend.
Do you ever have to ref with Ty?
Yeah, on occasion.
Ty's
yeah, it's been a while, but we did the ladies Ty's ladies set a couple weeks back.
I mean, I think this is my third year, or my fourth year reffing. I think this is my third year. This is my third year, and I started late in the first year, so like 2.5, whatever. But no, Joey Cubes he was one of my mentors. I will be the first one to admit the first year of MNL. I was not a ref. It was just freaking Rick. And then I think for the playoffs, we had decided this might be before Hedis time. You were there. You were a SEAL. It was Rick. He was a solo ref for the regular season, and it blows my freaking mind how much we bitched at Rick, like as a solo ref. Now that I do a ref, and I wore my shirt appropriately here, that Ref Lives Matters, because I believe just like black people, our lives matter. But I don't want to be political here.
Ty's thoughts do not represent the podcast in any way, just to let you know.
Yeah,
well, the chat seems to think so. Everyone keeps asking where Ty got that shirt from, and Whoop is screaming collusion.
No, I bought this a long time ago. Actually, Rob Tasker is the one who he got it for a lot of people. So for a lot of the refs, but I just think back to the first year of Rick and how much we bitched, like, and now knowing what it is to ref and thinking about what it is to do a game by yourself, like being at a freaking goal line. And Rick had like a hernia and like other health issues.
Yeah.
And I was just like, when I think about it now and what fucking assholes we generally were to Rick, I'm just like, what the fuck? We were assholes. We're like expecting like a top-notch officiating and one guy, and the guy has a freaking hernia. And Joe, I think they brought in Joe Cubes for either the playoffs or later on in the year. And I remember the general was on our team, and we had this thing. I used to come in wasted every game for season 1.
You don't say.
Yeah. Came in wasted every single game. The general was looking to fight. We hated the Whalers. We hated Serta and Trent and we had this. There's a lot of anger out there on the year 1. And as the years progressed, we've kind of mellowed out a little bit over the years. But to answer the question at the beginning, Joey Cubes has been one of my mentors as a ref, and I started out reffing some games with him, and helped me along the way. And I consider him one of a top-notch official.
So then, how does MNL compare, like in a reffing situation, to other leagues you ref, or just like random games? Is it much different? Are people complaining more? Is it just typical beer hockey dumbasses?
There's more intensity. I mean, I think like a regular adult league in Troy or Royal Oak or Rochester, they don't play with each other the next year or do anything outside of that. They don't really know each other. They get into it. They probably have more altercations, but there's definitely a higher level of intensity. I think anytime you do a draft league, there's always a higher level of intensity.
I think I'd add on, like, it's kind of like a brotherly thing. Like, I think when you're doing in a Troy league or an Onyx league, these assholes don't know each other. So you can on any night just have somebody just beat the shit out of each other. It doesn't happen all the time, but if you do enough games at some other beer league. But on the other hand, on a day-to-day basis in our league, each other. And it's kind of like, everyone's kind of like your brother. Everyone's kind of a friend or somebody they're going to drink beer with afterwards and play the next season and maybe be on their team in the spring. So I think it's that's the little extra intensity. I think that no one's going to kill each other, hopefully.
Yeah.
Except most of the time, you don't feel like anyone's going to kill each other, but you feel that brotherly, like when you're 10 years old and you're playing hoops against them in the backyard and you don't want to fucking lose to your brother, and you're going to freaking give him an elbow, give him something. So there's that intensity, but no one's going to murder each other. But I don't know if that's how you feel.
I mean, I don't think we haven't gamed anybody. We haven't had guys rip helmets off and go at it.
So last thing before we actually get into the games, kind of more of the playoff situations here. Now you obviously know it's the playoffs. Like last night was game 3 for 2 series. Do you have a different mindset actually reffing the playoffs compared to regular seasons? And then also knowing it's a game 3, Do you let more stuff go? Do you try to do stuff consistently the same ways you would normally do?
I think Rob and I, we talk before each game. We always know, whether it's an elimination game or, what's on the line for each team. But, we treat every game like we're going to go out there and do a good game. I don't think we try to, we know that there's more on the line for certain games, and there's certainly going to be a faster pace and more intensity in other areas. But, I don't think there's not games where we're like, oh, it's not a playoff game. Let's go out there and not do anything, or call it an easy game. So
that would be my question. I would want to raise to Joe is like, and I kind of mentioned it before the broadcast, which I regret, but like how much you ref. I know if I like ref a bunch of games at the Onyx or something, I kind of pick up who are the assholes. Like I'm like, oh fuck, I'm doing that guy's game. Or something like that. But I'm like, you do our game every single week for an entire season. Like, most of the players, all the players, just the ones that are vocal, just the ones that get penalties, just the ones that stand out, that scream at you, like Troy maybe, or or the Taylor brothers or something, or Hedis,
Or
Spicy
me.
Hedis.
I'm always chirping all
you
the
know,
time.
like how much do you know what. I obviously maybe the playoffs. It's game 3. That's big, but like throughout the season, you kind of know the players. How much are you involved in? Knowing, like, is it cognizant, or you're just kind of like a normal one? Show up, punch in, punch out. Don't know these assholes. Just out of curiosity.
There's certain guys that I'm more familiar with because they talk to me before or after or during the games. Then there's some guys I probably haven't any conversations with. So there's I don't know. There's probably a handful of guys that I know and maybe more that I don't. But
why did you not like the Whalers and the Tigers throughout the season consistently? Obviously, it would probably be a Whalers Tigers finals if it wasn't for your hatred for those two teams.
I had nothing to
What baseless tie narrative bullshit. You know what's funny too, Ty? I've been timing you every time you've talked, and your first 2 times, at least you kept it around a minute before you passed it off to somebody else. Your last time was like 2 minutes and like 10 seconds. You're all right. We'll set it up all
I was just trying to pick the 2 whiniest teams.
See how much the North Star's White Tower.
First of all,
whiniest teams. You see your Troy yesterday? I told him to sit down and stop yelling. He's yelling more than I am, and I'm not even playing.
I was going to say, that's pretty obvious that if we were looking for whining teams, Troy, he's been better this year.
He's been
kind
really
of face
good
facts. But there's been a couple games where you hear him screeching around the ice, where he is at all times. Rumor was he kind of had a bad game last night, but besides the point. Ty, I got a question for you, though. Do you remember calling a goal in a shootout 2 spring seasons ago?
Yes.
Do you remember that comment you told Cam afterwards?
No. Refresh my memory. But I do remember the controversy, and I think that was like my first 6 months, and that's my defense right now before you completely refresh my memory.
I don't know the comment.
But Cam didn't leave the comment. I left it open-ended. So
yeah, Cam paid his points to get that. But let's kind of move on to the actual games of the night. Our first game of the night was
I don't have to remember. I didn't remember.
So we had the Americans versus the Seals. Do you have something?
Well, I was going to say to have a comment on. I don't have anything against either team or any team. So to answer
Ty's question, I know, and that was below the belt.
Now I can fully understand. I guess before we move on, since I just thought of one more question, that you don't necessarily remember people throughout the season. But if there's a game that someone's being a jerk, do you kind of remember that, and it might stick to you, and you might not give them the benefit of the doubt on certain plays?
No, I don't think you would never give somebody the benefit of the doubt on something. I think you got to look at every game as a new game.
I would definitely hold it against someone for the record, but that's why I'm not a ref.
No, to Joe's credit, like there have been some stressful games throughout the year, and occasionally I check in to see how they're doing, and I mean, it's just like anyone else, and I do the same thing. It's always a fresh slate, even if you don't want to give the asshole a fresh slate. Every game is a fresh slate for the coaches, everyone, and I do that whether it's a youth game, a beer league game. Just start at baseline 0 and go from there, and that's the best way. And I know Joe does that too.
So Ty, your comment was it a goal? Question mark. Wasn't sure.
Wait, and this is what, year one? Am I a solo rep? What? This is the cam thing again?
This is the cam thing.
Goalie's got good memories, dude.
Oh God!
So there's, there's a shootout.
Cam,
You know what? It's
who
not
invites you to family Christmas Eve for the last 2 years, has a great time with your family, and now you're trying to out me on the podcast.
Just drags you under the bus.
Drag me under the
Drags
bus.
into the bus.
I hang out with your girlfriend during the. I mean, she lives and dies for your saves. I mean, when we're watching the Whalers games, it's
you
like
should have traded for
she
him.
is
Then.
just
then
like
you'd be on your team. Your own goalie wouldn't drag you then.
she is literally like dying every single time you let a goal in. I'm trying to be like, calm down, you'll be all right. Cam's not going to beat you tonight. I'm like,
I'm talking so fast. What is he doing?
I'm just saying. No, honestly, but I don't remember saying that. But if you know, I there's times when I have throughout. If you ref enough games, there are times when goals happen, and you're just like, fuck, I have no idea.
Yeah, I think if I was ever to be a referee on decisions like that, even if I didn't know, I would act like I was confident and just roll with it, even if it was the dumbest call in the world. But like I said, we're going to now move on to the games. We had the Americans versus the Seals in the first game of the evening. The Seals won this game 3-1. Big things in this game as McShannock actually got moved up to center. We had Whoop and Leroy as a D-line pairing with Brawny and Alan Z as well. Proctor started out obviously with the first goal of the night. He had a beautiful goal, split the defense for that goal. And then the issue kind of happened. There was, unfortunately, Proctor broke his collarbone on a fall. There was a penalty on that. Me seeing it, I didn't think it was an intentional. I don't think Pfister's that kind of guy, but it still sucks for the league in general. Hedis, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Proctor is one of those guys in the league that, you know, you expect your first rounders, your second rounders to create chances and to generate goals and, you know, just be the players you draft him to be, right? So he always tends to put himself in kind of dangerous spots on the ice. And unfortunately, when you're in dangerous spots on the ice, you know, you have a more susceptible chance to take either, you know, more hacks and whacks or get put on weird positions on your feet. And that's kind of what happened last night. In one of those positions, he kind of went between three players and someone kind of got his stick, hooked his stick underneath him. And I mean, if he stays on his feet, I don't think it's a penalty. I mean, Pfister got a stick, but I mean, he hooked his stick enough that, I mean, he kind of got off balance and it wasn't intentional. He's between three players and it looked from the boards to, I guess, me and to you apparently as well. He just got upended at the wrong spot at the wrong time, with speed into the boards and broke his collarbone, which is kind of strange because, not to go a little off topic, that's like 3 shoulder collarbone injuries in like 3 weeks between players Monday Night Lights.
Judge and who's the other one?
Oh, me, thanks.
Oh, you! I forgot.
Oh, no, I'm just nursing a sore vagina.
I thought that was a made up injury. Yeah. That's fine. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Proctor, his first goal was a nice kind of move, cutting on his skates, cutting around, going through people. The second, his injury there was a similar move, which kind of puts you a little bit off balance and a little bit in a weird position. He's a good enough skater where you think that's normally going to happen. Things happen. Now, Joey, you obviously saw the penalty there. What did you see there to make it a 5-minute penalty?
Rob and I, you know, when we saw the play, we both had a good angle on the play. Rob was along that board. You know, we had the hook. I think that at the time you look at it, it's a dangerous play going into the boards. You know, that's one, and then he went down. The player was injured, and then, you know, that elevates that from your minor penalty to your major penalty.
Now, there was a little bit of talk on the sidelines about should have been a 5-minute versus not. My thought was it should. People were talking about intent versus not. A penalty like that, intent doesn't matter, does it?
You can I mean, if you can prove intent, you know, there's certain penalties where, you know, if a guy takes a stick to a guy's head, I mean, there's intent. There's no you know.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, what I'm saying is it's still a penalty of what happened. It's not because like, oh, I didn't mean to do it. It's not a penalty, or am I wrong on those situations?
Penalties can be tough because they're not always black and white. There's a few. I mean, a lot of guys don't mean to high stick a guy in the face. Still high sticking, you know. Didn't mean it, but it happened. So
exactly.
It is. So that, you know, so there's a little black and white there, but a lot of these there's gray areas, and at that moment you've got to make that call. But that's why Rob and I, we both had our arms up and we both talked about it before we made a decision, and that's what we went with.
Hedis, did you get to see? Well, you did get to see it. Did you agree
Yeah.
with the call?
Yeah, I thought the call was fair. I mean, I could have saw like 2 double minors maybe, but I mean, like the major makes sense. And in any case, I mean, whether it has intent or not, I mean, a player got injured in the play, and I mean, sure, a little bit of fault maybe does go on Proctor. I mean, for having been in a dangerous position, but I mean, he's just trying to create space. He's trying to generate that scoring chance, and if there's no injury in the play, again, just different things may have happened, and maybe Joe and Rob, they call different penalties at that point, or maybe situation ends up differently. But I mean, when you're kind of off balance like that, and then you get the hook underneath it, it's kind of tough not to make that call. And then from a momentum standpoint, I mean, once they get the penalty, the Americans didn't really do anything with it after that to kind of finish out that period. So it was kind of strange to go grab Sugar. I think it was Ben or Ben was the first person that Proctor saw off the ice, and Ben had to wrap up his shoulder, and then we ran and got Sugar. So I don't know if that's where you're leading the discussion to.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously during that 5-minute penalty, when you're missing your number 1 draft pick, that's going to be hard to take advantage of that. I did see, Sugar was there. It looked like he was planning on playing the 10 o'clock drop in. People, top player available. He was willing to put his gear on and help out the Americans. You can't say anything bad about that. Very good of him. It's just one of those horrible things. And I mean, obviously, it hurt the momentum a lot. I think the Seals obviously got the next 3 goals. Pfister was able to get the next 2. They got an empty netter at the end, but that just was a momentum killer, as a whole for the Americans.
Yeah, those I mean, overall the game was very tight, very defensive. I mean, even the first Seals goal, they had to grind it out. Simonelli kind of turned over the puck on the side of the net. He was like a weird kind of clearing play. He meant to clear up the boards, and he kind of hit the side of the net, and then it was kind of like jumbled on the right post between Simonelli and Flo, and Pfister kind of went in there and did Pfister things and poked it home. So, and then I think the Seals' last goal, Pfister, like you said, picked up with like 2 minutes left. The third was an empty netter. So the entire game was tight. I mean, if Proctor stays in, if he doesn't get hurt, I mean, who knows how the momentum of the game goes, because that was an early goal, and it wasn't I think Dylan, let's say, would be the first person to tell you, it wasn't like the greatest goal to give up, because I mean, along the ice, and Proctor's kind of cuts in and shoots it. I don't think Dylan was ready for it, but I mean, the rest of the night he played solid. J Flo kept the Americans in it. And it was a tight game. So I mean, I don't know how many penalties came after that, but unlike the game 2 with the Seals, they didn't have that many penalties in that third game.
Yeah, it was tough. Ty, did you get to see much of this game? I know you were probably changing during part of it.
No, I actually brought my equipment into the penalty box and I changed in there. And I was fully changed and ready except for my skates by the time the puck dropped, because I'd like to be prepared for things like being asked to be on the podcast. So, anyway,
wow.
I agree with Spicy. I mean, when you first entered the building, I mean, you could just sense there's tension. It was like kind of like not a lot of scoring chances at the beginning. It was very tight. Everyone was playing, didn't want to make the kind of like, I don't want to make a mistake hockey. Proctor got that one. He can't cut across the middle and was able to beat Dylan. And Uncle Pfister's on my side, and he's screaming, and he's like, "I told them not to let Proctor go across the middle." Like Uncle Pfister's is like, I'm like, Uncle Pfister, when do you tell the Seals these things? I don't know.
I'm sure he's in their Slack channel.
He might be in their Slack channel. I don't know. He was furious. He's like, "I told him not to." And so, once the Proctor play happened, it was you could kind of just, the intensity that was there, you could kind of just feel it, kind of was sucked out. And I think the call was perfect. I think 5 minutes was is the perfect penalty, because, and it was the most fair. I mean, to be honest, it's just like kind of the air. They're up 1-0. Proctor comes in, scores. They're up 1-0. The air is sucked out of the building. No one likes to see anyone, even Proctor, who's very injury prone and has weak ligaments and muscles and everything. Just he needs to drink some more milk or something. I don't know what it is, but no one likes to see that. And so when he went off, it was just kind of, the energy was just sucked out of the building. I was like playing the music, and I didn't want to even. It felt awkward playing music in between. It was perfect. The 5 minutes was perfect for just like, even if it wasn't an advantage, as far as like, I didn't feel like the Americans were gonna like take advantage of it, because they're losing Proctor, and Proctor's like plays the entire. I'm sure if there's a 5-minute power play,
that's what's going to
Proctor's going to play it. But I didn't feel, for one, no part of me felt like the Americans were going to score on the 5 minutes. I don't know if this is no rational reasoning for penalties or anything, but the way the game played out, 5 minutes was perfect time to just like, relax, calm down. At least you're not going to give up goals. Hopefully you're not going to give up a Shawnee breakaway, which I don't think he did. It went 5 minutes, and then it was the energy was sucked out. And then we kind of, after a while, just played regular hockey, and the Seals just took advantage. I mean, Sugar came out, but there's a chemistry, a lack. I mean, Proctor is Proctor. Proctor's won 3 kegs for a reason, and it's not a slight to Sugar by saying him coming in was a great help. But
if they had Proctor on the ice for that power play, it would have been different. I mean,
absolutely.
It's 1-0, you're missing your best player, and Sugar wasn't even dressed yet. The only thing I thought they could have done different, maybe the Americans, was they could have thrown one of their defensemen up on forward at that time, but they didn't have edge there last night. So who are they going to put? You can't move Lapudre up at forward. The only defenseman you could have done that with is maybe Star. Then you're rotating a back 3 and your
Star
defense.
hates offense.
And Star hates offense. He can do it. He did it season 2 with the Americans, but then you're trying to capitalize and get a second goal and just completely deflate the Seals at that point. But
so I thought it completely worked out as fair as it could be for a shitty ass situation, and the Seals took advantage of it. Over time, it was just kind of, there just wasn't enough offense. I mean, it became apparent that it was going to happen, and I honestly game 1, Proctor's not there. The Seals take advantage of it. Proctor shows up game 2, scores a natural hat trick. Boom, boom, boom. It's not even a contest. He wins. Proctor shows up game 3, scores a goal. He's up 1-0, breaks his collarbone. And then, so if you do the plus minuses when Proctor's on the ice and in the game, I mean, the Americans are winning. So, I mean, the Seals got a very, I don't know, there's been speculation whether it's dirty play. They were roughhousing the Americans, but, they honestly don't deserve to be there. It's obvious. It should be the Americans versus the North Stars, but they escaped. They made bad decisions, but
Dad, we get it. We don't keep rambling on.
Okay,
all right, go ahead.
Anyway, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's just Sugar. It's not fair to him. Obviously, him and Antioch, they haven't played together all year. Plus, he gets on the ice. He misses that 5-minute power play. He hasn't got to stretch. He hasn't got to warm up. It's going to take him some time to probably well into the second period to do that. I don't know if he got to stretch in this, between periods, but you're not going to get a full stretch full warm up there. So, you just don't get in that rhythm right there. So it's a bad situation. You got to give him credit for doing it. And that's a plus in my book.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I mean, and that's like, who else are you going to ask? I mean, at the time, the only 2 players you could ask there was Fem and Sugar standing across the boards. I think Sugar was the first person that they just kind of turned to because he had his bag. He was already headed to the locker room. Like, Sugar, can you play? He's like, yeah, done deal.
Yeah. Joe, I don't know. Like, how did you see this game as far as like speed, intensity compared to other games? I don't know any other insights you want to give. It's a little tough as a referee, but feel free to give whatever you think in the game.
I think it was a good game. I mean, it was close. It was tight for a while there. The injury changed. I think it changed, the look of the Americans there for a while. But, nothing out of the ordinary for those 2 teams playing together.
Yeah, and I think the whole Simonelli, I don't want to call it turnover, but like you said, it kind of went off the net or the post or whatever for that goal. I think that was a killer because I think there was some hope that J. Flo, as good of a goalie he is, he could kind of just hold it, and if they just play lockdown defense, maybe they could squeak out the game.
He was on his game last night. I mean, the Seals, like I said, must have outpossessed and kind of out-controlled the game towards the middle of the second half of the third period and the middle of the second onwards. And J. Flo was standing on his head. He's making saves from the slot. He's making good reads back post. So, I mean, kind of touching on what Joe said, it's a little bit, definitely a little bit more of a playoff atmosphere in games past between the Americans. Sometimes in the season, they get that like kind of, it's just a Proctor, the Americans game. We have more games in the future. We have the playoffs kind of sort of thing. You could tell, like, I think we played earlier this season. We got 3-0, and then they're like, oh, we're playing hockey. They stormed back and scored 3, and we eventually won. But it was one of those games where like it took them a period to kind of get going, sort of thing. This game, both game 2 and 3, the Americans were out of the door, out of the barn instantly. I kind of felt starting the first period. So like we said, I think we said 1,000 times already. The momentum kind of slowly went downhill after the Proctor injury. So.
Yeah. So we did get a voicemail about this game. Joe, have you ever heard of Billy Baloney?
No, I've not.
So Billy Baloney used to be on Pee Wee's Playhouse. So he calls the show regularly. He leaves voicemails for us. So he gave us a call about the game to give us thoughts. So
We have a wider span than you might imagine. Like sometimes
we've had the Macho Man call
we had
us,
somebody
He-Man
call
call
in,
us.
call from heaven. Billy Baloney's a frequent caller. We've got Grandma Gio, who is Gio's grandma, ironically. Call from Italy sometimes.
Okay.
But here you go.
So let's hear what Billy had to say.
Good evening. It's friend of the show and your old pal, Billy Baloney. Now, I may have a broken leg, but that's nothing compared to the broken heart I have after watching the Americans end their season last night. That said, also nothing compared to the broken heart I have after watching number 22 get hurt on the ice last night. Everyone be safe going into the final games of the season. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
That was just sentimental.
It was a little heartfelt
I
there.
was going to tear up. I was waiting for the comedic turn, but no.
Didn't happen.
Hey, Billy said it good. They don't all have to be funny. I love when Billy gives us a call. I think we're going to move on to the next game, though. That was the Tigers versus the North Stars. The North Stars pulling this game out 5-4 overtime. I'm going to say this is a potential game of the year candidate right here. So let's start with Ty. Give us your short version because it's probably going to be like 20 minutes anyways of how this game kind of went through.
All right, I'm going to cut it short. I'm going to make it clean and crisp. I came into this game extremely confident.
What's new?
No, I was a little nervous, obviously, because this is game 3. But the fact that Pfister and Dillon, I'm thinking they're coming in. They're the Tigers superstars, and they're coming in on a second game, and they're going to be tired. And I think they're going to have this high emotional game 1, and it didn't matter if they won or lost. They're going to come in and just be worn out, wiped out. I feel like the game 1 being how it wasn't that emotional. It was just kind of like after the injury, they kind of just eventually just exerted their power over the Americans, and it wasn't that big of an exhausting experience for them. So Pfister, Dillon came in pretty fresh. I mean, Pfister showed no signs of game 2. I thought it was his game 1. I normally don't. I was so excited that it was his game 2, and the guy played like amazing. We got down 1-0. It was nerve-wracking. It was just like, okay, we're just, here we go. The Tigers were mixing up their lines, doing their whole thing where they did not want to have Pete, Troy, and Joe Ellis. They did not want to play them against Pfister, Ben, and Sweet Maki. And so, like at the beginning of the game, we're trying to shuffle the lines. They brought out multiple lines, and then finally, we were up against the second line, which was Skillman, Krunk, and somebody else,
Ryan
Allen. And then they took a 20-second shift, jumped them off, took them right off the ice. The first whistle, 20 seconds in, just so they could put Ben, Pfister, and Sweet Maki against us, and that's what they wanted. So we're like, at that point, we're just like, fuck, okay, fine, we'll just let them have their way. We got down 1-0. We were able to get up 2-1. But then it was 2-2 by the end of 1. So it was high 2-2 after one period. It felt like every time we got up, we just instantaneously give a goal back. We finally got up 4-3. Skillman just put in like what I would equate to a basketball player doing a fadeaway shot. He just kind of faded away from the goal and just freaking roofed it right over Riley's.
He was fired
shoulder.
up after that.
Oh
too.
yeah, and his chants were let's go, and I was a little scared. I'm like, oh shit, Skillman's fired up. Here we go, 4-4. There were some penalties in the last minute. We take Booker. Booker takes his second penalty of the game, which was a little questionable. He kind of had a little physical encounter with Shepard. I thought he was just showing Shepard who was the man, but apparently Rob Tasker didn't think that way. But shortly thereafter, Pistol was on a drive to the net, and Matt Lapudre upended him, and that evened that out. So the game ended in a tie. We went into overtime. We looking on the bench, who do we put out there? We put out Pete, our old man Ite, and Doc Hollywood. We're thinking we've got enough after that for a second line.
Gonna let you wrap it up super quick because someone requested you to be muted.
Oh my God. It's so painful having such insight.
Was that your short version?
I'm sorry. I have so much I didn't even cover, but go ahead.
So, Hedis, you are the opposite team.
Yeah, so to redact half of his story.
And just to start out with, obviously, you're the goalie on that team. You weren't able to play. It's a horrible thing. And
Correct.
I don't think anybody wanted that to happen. I think win or lose, we would have rather had you be out there for the matchup than anything else.
I wanted to play the last 2 weeks. After the nonsense that was that 8-2 game, your boy here, the real strategic genius behind some of the North Stars machinery and how they got their team to be, and let some of the Tigers line up and how we are now. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to humble brag because I'm out here in the seat. We went back to like I said, back to our locker room. We made our lineups, and we got the lineups how we wanted, kind of like Ty was saying. So the entire game was kind of us playing a game within a game, making sure we lined up our lines the way we wanted to against the North Stars. We figured them out. It worked for most of the game. The times it didn't work is when we were either shorthanded and trying to line up like you said, trying to line up Skillman's line against Troy, or when it was in the beginning of a period we couldn't do that. Other than that, like Ty said, the game was back and forth. Every time they got a goal, we got a goal. Vice versa until it was 4-4 and went to OT. And then going into OT, what kind of hurt, I guess, a little bit in OT was Matt Lapudre probably was our best defenseman, and getting the offsetting kind of penalties like that in OT forced us to put Chris Taylor back on D, Vice sending him up at forward, because originally our offensive pairings would have been Skillman, Pfister, Chris Taylor, and Bin, and then we'd have Shepard and Matt Lapudre back at defense, and so we'd have two separate lines of three to play the first minute and a half, the second minute and a half. Before she was in the box, we still made do, put Chris back there. Ben had a chance to win the game, I guess, kind of by giving a Pfister, or give Pfister a chance to win the game by giving him a lead pass into the zone. Pete was able to come back after a long shift, took a puck away from Pfister. Pfister actually told me outside in the Black Blue party deck he thought it might have been offsides. He was like, oh shit, it's not. And he had to turn around and chase Pete back up the ice. But Pete did the razzle dazzle, lifted his stick, took the puck, went down to our end of the ice, and quote unquote from Pete, hey, I was a little gassed if Chris Taylor would have poked it from me. I may not have been able to score, but I just prayed, and you know how I do. I know how to shoot the puck, so I shot a net, try to use Chris Taylor as a screen, and it went in, and that's well she wrote. And Pete ended up scoring a goal with about, I want to say, minute 30 left, a little slapper from top of the hashies. So and that's all she wrote for the season. But I mean, the entire game, kind of as you alluded to and Ty alluded to, it was back and forth. There's probably a goal every other 8 minutes in the game. I mean, it was a high scoring affair. It wasn't a low scoring affair for sure. Yeah,
from the sidelines, like I said, contender probably right now, just on top of my head, probably game of the year. Back and forth, goals all the time, always a close game, very entertaining. Like you said, in the overtime, or actually right before the overtime, there was a couple penalties that kind of hurt things for lineup situations, but Pete was able to grab the puck, go coast to coast, and score a goal. You got to give him credit. He's really stepped it up in the second half of the year. So you got to put tip your hat to him. Joe, did you see much I felt like this game had a lot more intensity. There was a lot more chippiness in this game. And I feel like it would have been hard to call because there was some penalties that people were like, oh, and some people thought penalties were missed. It was one of those things. I did honestly think the game was called evenly, which is one of my big things is with refs is as long as it's called consistently across the board, there's really nothing you can complain about.
Yeah, guys, we're definitely playing on that edge, and you could sense that the whole game. But yeah, each team responded back and forth. I think that's what Rob and I noted, was nobody was going to run away with that game. And then it came right down to a tie at the end. We had a little bit of confusion at the end with that face-off. Something happened where there's the buzzer went and there was over a second left. We're trying to get time on the clock. I think Troy said, "Don't worry about it." Skated back to the bench. So then we go over to talk to Drager, and he's putting time up, and then somebody says, take the time off. So we're going to start the overtime, and then there's time back up on there. And then we ended up dropping the puck. It didn't mean anything, but I don't know. Sometimes when you get those controversial things at the end, you add over a second. I thought there's going to be a shot on net here, but there wasn't.
Yeah, that was definitely a confusing moment, and I guess it comes from the scorekeeper. You never know. I think sometimes it's tough for a scorekeeper too, because I've been in those situations in the finals where it's tough to be like, you're trying to stop the clock right when you need to. You might do it a little early, a little late. Realistically, you're not going to be able to win with one team or the other, so it's not an easy thing.
Yeah,
your 5
still
minutes
muted.
are not up as of
Big
right now.
oof
Ty.
over there,
Now,
North Star Master.
This week we have a clock.
Yeah, sure. That sounds good. Anyways,
I put you back out.
Well, I
ahead,
appreciate it. So I will. The only thing I wanted to note was at the end of that game, it was clearly an icing, and it was 2.1 seconds left. And Uncle Fister is one of my favorite players in the arena every single night.
Players.
But he's also the uncle of Fister. Ironically, Uncle Fister is uncle of Fister, and he was playing for the Tigers. And all of a sudden, I'm looking up at the clock, and I'm just like, it just like trickles down. And so I was one of the ones screaming like 2.3. We got 1.8 seconds put on, which I appreciated. I didn't know what Troy obviously was just like, forget about it, which is fine. It wasn't that big of a deal. But and as far as that last play of the game, when Fister kind of didn't get the puck and Pete picked it up, there, one of the famous, it was spoken about on Slack a little bit about today, but Troy was on the bench screaming, "Get back, you stupid motherfuckers." that was a quote. And then I was kind of thinking the same thing. I don't like to, yell that much. And then Pete picked it up. And then by the time he had got into the midway, the center line, I mean, he had picked up so much speed. It was just Greek freak mode. It was his third goal, and I knew he was going to score. I don't know how I knew, but I was just like, holy shit. He just came down and fucking bolted it right past Dylan, and obviously the rest is history. And it would have been scary going into a shootout, because I think we were running out of time for the 3-minute overtime, and we would have had to go in a shootout with Dylan, and I have all the respect in the world for Dylan, and it would have been scary. Definitely scary, but the Greek freak, I just want to say, I mean, that's why we didn't draft him. Initially, we took Suits. Or no, we didn't take Suits. We took Suits over him, and then Suits over him. And it was because we could trade for him later just to get his anger up, because we know.
Okay, we got it.
Pistol Pete works.
Stop.
He works.
I'm not handling this.
We're
I agree.
Spartans.
The chat's right. The chat's talking still about that 1.8 thing and the 2.3 seconds.
Yeah.
I know that you came back to the bench and told us, Joe, you're like, hey, yeah, we're actually gonna do the face-off. We just didn't know what was going on. I mean, we had no issue with it. We're like, we want to have the face-off, that's fine. Because in this league, no one's gonna. I mean, let's be real. No one's gonna score like with 1.8 unless it's like the perfect drawback to Matt Taylor, Proctor, Fister, and they laser it.
Yeah. Rumor has it Troy was yelling to run the clock anyways. And speaking of Troy,
he did, but he's like, you know what? They couldn't get the face-off. Let's get a face-off. I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Of course, your brother left us a voicemail.
Oh,
good.
So
I
think we'll play that real quick and see what he has to say.
What's up, boys? Sniper Auto calling in on Tuesday. I think the one emotion I'm feeling is relief. That was a nail biter. Tip my cap to the Tigers. They definitely outcoached us. I think they knew that we were the better team. And they kept doing that line jumping thing, trying to get Fister away from Pete, which I think was smart, and it frustrated us and really annoyed us. So, but just happy to survive. Greek Freak came through for us with the guarantee, so feeling pretty good. Want to thank Piercy for all the support. Feels good to get the win. But I'm calling about Joey Cubes. Excited to have him on the show. Didn't think it was Joey's best night last night. Disagreed with plenty of the calls, but I've been a long-time Joey supporter, believe it or not. I'm curious to hear kind of Joey's best takes, best players, maybe some McCracken theory, Peso theory, and I know I don't want to, broach your integrity, but any kind of thoughts on the Stanley Cup Finals? evenly matched? Do you think one team's got the advantage over the other? I know that won't affect any of your calls, but I want to hear from Joey Cubes. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Joey, center stage, please.
As always, we appreciate the call from Ty.
Yeah.
We'll skip some of the individual players. We got the preview coming up, so we'll get to that as well, and we'll see if you want to give an opinion. But we always appreciate the call from Troy. So
Can I add one note on the end of the game?
do we have a choice?
Well, I just want to say, so when we finished the game, we were obviously elated and happy, and the Greek Freak had 3 goals. Doc Hollywood had 2. Drunk ass Suki came into the locker room, and I'm assuming he was drunk because he was just high-fiving.
He was slurring his words.
Oh
I think
my God. He came into our locker room. That was the happiest Suki I've ever seen, and he was just spreading hugs, ass pats, fist pumps, handshakes across the way. I've been on this team for 2 years, and blue. I started crying. I was just like, I never even knew if Suki appreciated being a North Star, but I know that when you're drunk, your true feelings come out. And he was just so ecstatic for our win, and it meant a lot for Suki to be in there. I mean, he was drunk as shit, and I didn't understand a word he said, but I appreciated the hugs and the fist pumps, and it was an amazing scene. You know, it's good to know someone's out there rooting for the North Stars.
Besides your number one fan, me.
I mean, sometimes it feels lonely out there. You're not really vocal.
I mean, I'm still waiting. We talked about this last week. I'm still waiting for my shirt to come in the mail.
We're going to get you that.
That's what you said last week. It hurts. It hurts when you lie to me. You love someone, they lie to you, they lie to you, they lie to you. Eventually that love might stop. I'm just saying. Anyways, let's move on to the finals. A few things to note are we got some OT rules that we were talked about. OT 1 is going to be a 5-minute stop clock 4v4. If doesn't result in a goal, it'd go to a second overtime 5-minute stop clock, 3 versus 3, and after that, we're gonna have a shootout, 3-man shootout followed by, let's see, sudden death shootout after that. So 3-man's first automatically goes, and it would be sudden death after that. I think it's every player must shoot once before you can actually repeat as well. So
I like that.
Question is, do we like those rules, or technically if we have a 9 o'clock game, we do have the 10 o'clock ice. Should we just zam the ice and let them just go into another game that's sudden death?
Arguably, I'm kind of on board with Piercy with that. I mean, obviously, it's more work on Joe's side. I think the real people we should be asking about these rules should be Joe and Rob, because since they're the freaking refs, they're like, "Are you going to pay us? Is this extra time and a half? Like, what are we doing here?" But if you're looking from a standpoint view from like a supporter outside the rink watching the game, maybe inside the glass with spicy lettuce, I'm all for like an OT where it's sudden death as opposed to the skills competition and a shootout, especially because you have an entire another hour of ice. That game's not going to go 3 more periods. A game will probably be settled within 1 period at the most. So
I'm more than happy with that proposal. I do not need the ice, Sam. If you want to give us an extra instead of 30 seconds in between, I'm happy with the 1 or 2 minutes, and we can talk about our feelings. But I have no desire to fucking wait for my knees lock up. I'm fat. I'm old. I can't handle another zam.
They talked about a dry scrape, a zam, a couple
I don't
different
even know
things,
what that is. What's a dry scrape?
Just get a couple shovels.
Sounds painful.
Just get a couple shovels and go up and down the ice really quick.
Fuck no. No. We get out there. We play our 4-on-4, 3-on-3.
But the
Somebody's
real
gonna score. If it goes after a 5-on-5 stop clock and a 3-on-3 stop clock to a shootout, then it deserves to be a shootout, in my opinion.
You really want that? You really want the keg on the line being decided in a shootout?
No.
I absolutely do.
This is not 98 Nagano. No.
Because you know what? If you are tied after all that time, it deserves to be on something random. It's random that you can't fucking determine a winner out of 3-game series and all those overtimes. Then guess what? Then it's going to be determined on a random shootout. So I have no desire to watch a Zamboni come out there and resurface the ice or whatever, dry scraping or whatever the hell you want to call it. So that sounds
retarded. Like more of a reason that your nervousness, your lockup, the strategy involved on the teams. Yep. That sounds like more of a reason to do that. How much overtime do we have to pay the refs for something like that? A whole nother session. I'm good for it. Drager will pay it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at some point it would pour over into the next hour. you'd like to see something for it. But I like the 3-on-3. I think if you just continued with that, you'd have a winner at some point pretty quick. That seems to open things up. I don't know. I can't recall the stats, but I mean, did many games go to a shootout?
Yeah, we really didn't have that many shootouts.
At some point,
for having such a parity in the league, we did not have that many shootouts.
Yeah.
3-on-3 definitely opens it up. It is, I consider it to be a lot of fun. Makes it tiring. It makes it a super fast-paced game because obviously you're not slowing stuff down and there's plenty of room on the ice. Maybe it's periods with 3-on-3 because either it's going to end fast or people are going to be on the ice keeling over because they're out of breath. I don't know.
For me, it's the ultimate game, 3 games of this of the season, right? Everyone keeps playing all these games. We're gonna put so much emphasis on the Stanley keg, right? So I mean, if this league's different than other leagues, I mean, you're already getting 3-on-3 is different from other leagues already, and having like a shootout's different from some other leagues already, like Onyx. But if you're playing for quite literally the keg, the championship, to me, you just play 4-on-4 OT for your 10 minutes or whatever it is, and then after that. Then if you have to go to another period of 10 minutes of 3-on-3, then you do that. But I mean, shootouts to me, I'd be against it, but it's not really up to me. It's up to the GMs in the ivory tower and Joe and Rob.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the shootouts either. Obviously, if for some reason we went through 3 full periods of nobody scoring in that 10 o'clock hour, we'd probably have to go to a shootout. But we also have. I'm not the financial guy of the league. I don't know what the situations are. I know we have Twitch Prime. We have extra money coming in from stuff like that. Take money like that for the extra fun of the league and use it towards something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to screw you guys over as far as the refs go on that.
No, we'd settle up with Drager.
Yeah, sure. Drager, I don't think it's right. He's bought a second house. He drives 2 Mercedes now. He's got multiple cars, and it's all based off our league dues, and it's just not right. I mean, he's got a mansion, and he's building a house in Mexico and Cancun or something. It's just crazy, and I don't think it's right. I think he can afford us a little extra ice time.
When you take MNL and you take it from 4 teams to 7 teams, those expansion fees alone is going to get you that stuff that Drager's earned. So he's earned that. So let's face facts.
Okay.
Let's not go down.
I'm not going to go down that line.
But yeah, so something to consider about there. Now, obviously, we have the Seals versus the North Stars in the finals. I did a little bit of research. From what I could tell, the North Stars are 2-1 versus the Seals. I think they've only had 1 game since the trade, and the North Stars, from what I saw, won that game 8-1.
8-2. There's a caveat in that game. I watched that game. They had 6 out of the Seals. I think only had 9 players to start the game. Eventually, they had a 10th guy show up halfway through the first, but either 6 or 7 of the Seals players had all played 2 games. That was their second game that night. And because Whoop and Shawnee were doing the kind of, we'll parade anybody out. So I don't want to say that's super caveated, but I mean, 8-2. I mean, it's probably not going to be that close. And don't get me wrong, the North Stars also with some people. You guys had Trent in, I believe, that day, and somebody else. Yeah. So that game was definitely not the normal franchises you see on the ice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to a good series. The most exciting part for me is that my parents have promised that if the Seals play the North Stars, they both are showing up in opposite jerseys. So, and they're going to bring Troy's son, Carson, for emotional support. He better be wearing a North Star jersey.
I legitimately thought you were going to say they're coming and whoever wins the series gets tattoos.
No, well, maybe. We can work things out. My mom, when I told my mom that we both won, and she was just like, oh, fuck. We said we were going to, we said we're going to show up if we both win. Like, you guys both won? What the fuck? So she was a little disappointed / very excited.
So couple things on the sub front. Sounds like Pellet's going to be out for at least the first 2 weeks. It sounds like Simonelli's locked in as that sub for those weeks. The general, obviously, he's been out. Sounds like they're moving over to Matt Lapudre, what my sources are telling me.
You're correct.
Also, Graham looks like he's going to be out, and it looks like Edge is going to be taking those spots as well. North Stars, they've had a pretty consistent lineup all year. Sounds like they're claiming in the Slack channels that things are going to stay the same. I think there are some questions with the Seals lineup as of right now. With them switching stuff up last week, they're bringing in, obviously, Matt Lapudre, who's a defenseman at heart. So I guess if I had to guess right now, McShannock's going to stay at center like he did last night.
I mean, I don't want to give away any coaching decisions because I mean I haven't been hired out yet by the North Stars or the Seals. But if I'm the North Stars, I mean you can't change your lineup, right? Because you got to go with what got you there. You have to make other teams. You have to make other teams beat you. Because arguably in the second half of the season, who has the best record in the league has been the North Stars. Sure, the Seals have been top dog all season. They proved it through the full 18 game schedule. But the last part of the schedule, the North Stars have been kind of riding high. So and outside of the one game you guys lost in this most recent 5-4. I mean, there hasn't been really. There's only been 4 games in which have been like 1-goal games. The North Stars. Every other game has been, 6 goals when we lost you in the playoffs. A couple games ago, you beat was it Ducks 3-1 or 4-1 the last game this season. So most of your games they've been close. But if you had to turn it on, the North Stars have shown they can turn it on. Now, don't get me wrong. The Seals definitely have the firepower and the skill and the talent, if not more talent than the North Stars to match the North Stars. I think the biggest 2 X factors kind of in the series is going to come down to whether Ty and Troy want to admit it or not, or Whoop want to admit it or not, is how each team lines their matchups against each other, their lines, which I think the Tigers kind of expose that to a degree that it can definitely line up. If you line up your lines correctly, you have the correct personnel matched up against the correct personnel in the North Stars, you can get goals, you can generate offense, you can play defense correctly. And then lastly, it's just going to be how well Dylan and Riley play. Because if Riley plays like he has the past 2 games in the North Star series, there's a lot of croquet wickets open here. I mean, and it's kind of tough giving up some of the goals from distance he is. But by the same token, Dylan on the second game with the Seals with us last night, and then the first time with the Seals the past 2 weeks, he hasn't been terribly hot either. So and he'll admit he's a 1 or 2 he'd like to have back because Dylan always admits it anyways. But I mean, if Dylan gets back to his normal form, if Riley gets back to his normal form, I think you're going to see more 2-1, 3-2 type of series goals wise. If they're both kind of playing like they did recently, you're going to see more 6-5, 5-4, run and gun, 90s, 80s style scoring.
Now, Ty, moving over to your side, what do you think are the keys to the game?
Honestly,
or just the series, I guess.
I don't appreciate Spicy ripping on my tender. He's been fantastic. We've lost 1 game since before Thanksgiving. So I don't appreciate him talking about Riley's holes. What you do with Riley's holes is your business. And I'd never ask Riley that because that's your business. Whatever happens in the bedroom does. But Riley's been nothing but amazing for us. As far as one of the key factors in this whole series is Rubel. Rubel suffered mono. We were going to go, Todd and I were going to go visit him in the hospital yesterday. I didn't even know he was in the hospital. And then he's like, I'm like, you're in the hospital? And he said, yes. And, but he was being let out at 1:00 and I couldn't make it by then. But Rubel suffered mono. He's been not reffing and not doing anything, but Rubel was a frequent subber for the Seals and us. And so that was kind of like, okay, that's nobody can get Rubel. But
realistically, if you look at all 3 subs you guys brought in, both teams are subbing up across the board. No offense to Graham, Edge is better as a better defenseman.
Right.
Than Graham
so
is. Same thing with Lapudre.
If we're being completely honest
than
right
general.
now, Matt Lapudre, I think he's the defenseman of the year. I did the Dickey Awards. I don't know if anyone else voted here.
I've already voted.
I voted for defenseman of the year. I voted Matt Lapudre.
Does Joe know about the Dickey Awards?
I sent him the link and I asked him if he voted, and he's like, "Yeah, I felt
I felt
the burn today."
Ty sends
that's
me
not what I'm talking about. I don't want to.
Okay, stop. You're done. Mute.
What?
Ty sends me a lot of links, videos.
I try to keep them up in
all
the
day
league.
long.
Let them know.
Rob and I don't always click on them. I'm actually kind of surprised that Rob sometimes does click on them. But
for the record, anything that he puts in Slack that is not an obvious, like it comes in and it shows you the preview of it, I refuse to click on because 1, I don't know what it is. I'm scared of what it is. 2, I don't know if he's smart enough not to put something that's probably a virus in there as well. So he might not even be malicious on purpose, but it's probably malicious just in general. So you always got to be careful when it comes to Ty, Hal, and a couple other guys when it comes to links like that.
So back to the game. Matt Lapudre he subbed for us many a times, and in our game. So I'm just going to be blunt with it. We wanted Matt Lapudre. I talked to him after the game, and he was just like, "Fuck no, I'm not going to be a North Star." He's like, "No, I'm angry because there was a penalty on Marvin again when he drilled Shepard, and that was kind of a light one, I thought, because it was a 50-50 puck. But then right after that, there was a penalty for the Tigers, and it was when Pistol was driving to the net, and Matt was playing defense against him, and
Pistol dropped his
Pistol
stick.
just fucking did yard
Dropped his
sale,
stick,
like
yeah.
took his helmet, threw it off. And to be honest, I think it was totally fair because I thought the Marvin one was light. And I thought that one was light. So I have no problems with it. But LaPoudre was mad outside on the Labatt's Blue Party deck. He was just like, fuck that. I'm so pissed. That was bullshit. He had to be in the penalty box.
God,
and
those LaPoudres have so much integrity, and they're just the best.
No, they're the best. I love the LaPoudres. I love Easy E. I've learned to love Matt. But so today was just a big bargaining. I mean, I sent flowers to the LaPoudre residents. I sent some to his wife that probably didn't, maybe that was the thing that didn't go over well. Chocolates. I was trying to do things that were nice to him, but he has signed with the Seals and he made a terrible decision, but that's fine. So we're going with Edge. I think if Graham's out, Graham has been a little sketchy all year long. So if Graham's out, we're going to go with Edge. Anyway, I don't think we're falling too much down, if any. I think Edge is a great player, and he showed intensity all year long. I don't like playing against him because he's a competitor and he's really good. He's got a freaking missile, and so we're excited to have Edge if Graham isn't there. So that's about as far as playing the Seals, I'm always excited to play Todd's team. Do I think they deserve to be there? Not really. I think they just lucked out. I think the fact that Proctor missed game 1 and the fact that they injured him with their brutal play, I think the Seals just kind of coasted through. They're like the Red Wings, the ones that win the President's Cup and then Brian Murray-esque and then losing the playoffs. I don't think they're that good. But so we're gonna try to find ways to kind of fire ourselves up because
says the unstoppable machine that lost to a team with like 2 broken players and guys that played their second game of the night and had to go to OT to beat them. Let's not. I know you can sit on your pedestal,
those are the things I'm going to try to dig deep and realize when I try to build myself up. I just don't think the Seals are that good. I think their defense is weak. I think Dylan's okay at goalie. I think he's probably he's one of the top goalies. I voted for him just because I thought it was the right thing to do. I think I don't think Superman's that good. I think we got his kryptonite. And I think their second line's horrible. I think their defense is a little weak. So I think we'll probably demolish the Seals 2-0. But I'm going to try to dig deep and try to find some incentive to...
Love the bias.
Yeah.
So from a reffing standpoint, not to cut you off here, so from a reffing standpoint, though, do you feel like this series is going to be more intense than like the regular season or even the semifinals upcoming? I mean, do you feel like there's going to be a lot of penalties? Because I felt like the second games and the third games in our series had a little bit more, I don't want to say hack and whack, but a little bit more aggressiveness or stick activity than the games prior to in the season.
Yeah, I think when guys have something to lose, a game, a keg, they will. They're going to play closer on that edge. They're going to push that edge a lot more, and there's a lot you can tell. There's more intensity out there. Last year, Rob and I did the finals, and I can't remember what happened, but I think it was like first 5 or 10 minutes in, we were calling penalties left and right, and then everything kind of settled down.
I was gonna say, is that something from this at the start of a game, especially the series, you call it tight, you try to get people to calm down a little bit because of that, or you just kind of play it by ear and see how they go?
I think you call it accordingly, but I think, a different atmosphere brings out different things in players. Nobody wants to lose an inch, and that's what they're fighting for. And I remember that from last year. I can't remember the game, but we called a bunch right away, and then everybody kind of settled down, and then it was good hockey from there. But yeah, I think we'll see the same. I think we'll see good hockey from both teams, and I'm sure that I don't know. I can't make any predictions, but I've seen each team's they've played each other. We've done the games. We've seen each team beat the other one. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and hopefully it'll live up. Last year, I think probably was the top all-time finals with an MNL. It went 3 games. It went into overtime in game 3 with the Nordique scoring a goal to wrap it up, which is kind of how like last week was with going into overtime goal. It was just that excitement, the intensity. Love to see something similar. It's always funner when it goes to a game 3 for that. Along the way during this, I did notice we got another voicemail.
Oh Lord,
that I was able to set up. I think it was from Cam according to my phone book numbers, but
Oh, great.
During Ty's ramble, I was able to try to load it up and see if we could play it. So I'm going to press the button, see if it worked.
Hey boys, we got a Black Knight Claus here. I just want to know, who do you think the All-Star / MVP of the final MNL 2020 final will be? Let me know. Bye.
So he's looking essentially for the MVP of the finals. Who do we think that's going to be?
I mean, you could still get it if you lose, if your team loses, right, or if you win. So I mean, both teams are kind of open. For me, you kind of got three players you're going to be looking at. I think you're looking at Batman, aka Chris Pfister. I think you're looking at Doc Hollywood, because ever since the invention of him with the ability to add Pete on the other line, he kind of makes the North Stars a complete two-line team. And then last but not least, I think one of the biggest X factors in my mind is also going to be Dylan, because he's kind of shown all year that he can compete, and he has another level sometimes for this league that the league can't cope with. And if he brings out the brick wall and the mortar along with those bricks and puts it up in the net, no one's going to score. So
yeah, I'm going to pick a North Star because I've obviously been on the North Stars bandwagon all year, and I'm going to stay on that. So I got to say they're going to be winning. I'm going with Pistol Pete. I think I said from the start, jokes aside or not, I thought Pistol was the fourth best player going into the draft. I still think that. I think obviously with him and Hollywood, that's a combo, but you see what he did last week. You see him playing defense. He seems to be healthy. I think he's healthy right now, even though I did talk he might have to miss spring, but he seems to be putting it all in there, putting it on the line, trying to get that going. I think he wants that keg. My heart says sniper, but my mind says pistol.
I don't know. Troy's good. Don't get me wrong. Troy's a good player and he's good value for where he is. He's value over round, I would say. It's probably playing better than his round value is. But on that line with Pete and Joe Ellis, Troy's arguably the third best player there. He's a complimentary piece. Like he just has to get in open spaces and put the puck on the net when the puck's on a stick or in forecheck correctly. He doesn't have to do a lot of thinking, though he is very cerebral on the ice. So for me, like I mentioned earlier, I'd see there. For me, I mean, I could also agree with Pete. I could also see Pete being one of those possible players too. But those four players you just named are probably the biggest players that are going to have the most impact on how the series is going to go and whether the North Stars or the Seals are going to win. So for me, you got to choose one of those four players or one of those three in my case.
Yeah, Joey, I'm obviously not going to put you in that situation to pick an MVP.
But you can.
I'll give.
But you can if you want. You want to choose one?
No, I mean I like MVPs. I think you can go a couple ways. You can always go with the guy who's got the most points, but you can. There's always those other things that guys are doing that open things up for the rest of the team. So it'll be interesting to see what way the league goes and how everything plays out. But I think those are all good candidates that you guys mentioned.
And Ty, I'm going to give you 60 seconds to ramble on about what you think, and then we're going to cut you off.
It'll be real quick.
I'm going to say Chocolate Thunder.
No.
I would say Marvin's. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I think Chocolate Thunder had some ups and downs. He got an earful from Pistol. I think Pistol was just feeling the Greek godness in him, but he was just like, Marvin, you had a terrible, terrible game. And he was ripping on Marvin. And Marvin has produced some magical moments, and he is a great player, and he's one of my favorites. He gave me two things, a Kodiak Wintergreen for Christmas. So I mean, he stole my heart right there. I've never fallen in love with a black man before. He was the first black man I ever fell in love with when he gave me those chewing tobacco, and we have a chewing tobacco after every game. But anyways, my MVP would have to be Doc Hollywood. I think what's going to happen is I think Pete's going to shut down Pfister and do that thing, and I think Doc Hollywood's going to just score at will. And also I was going to mention his mom is coming to the game. We grew up together since we've been in diapers. With Doc Hollywood, and his mom is excited to watch the game with my parents, and I think he's just going to light it up. He's been an inspiration to Gio, and I was going to take Gio, but he's inspired Gio. He's inspired me. He passes the puck to me, and it's been he's just in his quiet. He's like Steve Yzerman in a way that he's quiet. He's not loud at all, but the way he's just very he leads by example. and it's definitely Doc Holliday, and that's how I voted in the Dickey Awards today. I voted MVP, Doc Hollywood all the way.
So kind of the last thing we'll cover before we go is gonna exclude Joey and Ty, but we need predictions about who we think's gonna win the keg.
This is what I want to hear. This is what I heard. Right. I want to hear it right here, and I want to mark it down.
I kind of already alluded a little bit earlier to, I mean, who's going to kind of win, but not win, but who in my mind, if they can set themselves up best to win the series, is good. Who's going to be able to get their lineups correctly, ice a team that has balance on both the first and second lines, and can also neutralize other teams' first and second lines, and secondly, how the goalies play. Riley has good bounce backs when he's coming off of a week where he doesn't play, or he's coming off of a bad game or game he's giving some goals. The same thing with Dylan. So I think if you put the goalies aside, let's say the goalies play big, it comes down to kind of how each team slots their subs in and how they slot their lineups in. And I would have to say that the Seals are going to win in 3 because I just think they're slightly more flexible than the North Stars are. So even if the North Stars win the first game, which they could come out banging in the first game, and the Seals can adjust. But the game 2, the Seals can then adjust their lineup. The North Stars kind of suffer from they have their 1A, their 1B lineup, but none of their forwards can really jump back and be a defenseman unless it's specifically Troy. So if, for example, the Seals somehow are needed to stack a line and then play really tight defense on the second line and do the Rattler, Pfister, Shawnee thing. Not saying that their second line would be able to hold Doc or whoever they line it up against. They could do that, and that might overrun the North Stars defense. I mean, they could put Edge together with Marvin or Edge together with someone else, but their defense isn't as solid per se as some of the other teams like the Americans that were in the playoffs or even arguably us when we made their defensive lines up. So it's gonna kind of come down to what team kind of lines up, lines up with what lines against each other. But that's razor thin. That's like a 51-49 sort of thing. And I could be wrong. I mean, it could easily just be the North Stars win 2-1 because they made a better lineup prediction, and Whoop just bumblefucks it because Whoop's going, ho, we're going to line up me back on defense with, I don't know, Leroy against Pete and Doc when they put Pete Doc together in a power play. So it's going to come down to a lot of, I don't want to say outside game influence, but it's going to come down to some of that. And if Suits comes back and helps organize you guys behind the bench, that could help. If the Seals run out and grab a former, I don't know, Wilkie, and he's coaching, or someone else to kind of help them organize back there, that could definitely help them and kind of solidify or ease the stress of trying to make sure who's on the ice at the right time.
Yeah, the way that I look at this is it's going to be interesting to definitely see how the Seals lines are. Last night, they were playing kind of the star line version where they had Rattler, Rattler, Pfister, and Shawnee all together, kind of leaving the Pellet with McShannock and who am I missing there? Neville. Correct. So not a horrible line. They're actually, Neville's a good defensive player. He's quick. He can move around. Very good. Obviously, McShannock, he plays defense, kind of helps shore up them from goals opportunity. I just don't think they could play a line like that when it comes to the North Stars. The North Stars have those trades gave them essentially 2 top lines. When you have Pistol and Hollywood as those guys, you have, Joe Ellis and Troy together on the other one. And then you have Ty and who's your other?
Gio.
Yeah. So that's just 2 quality lines, 2 balance. It's going to be too hard to do a star line and the other line in that situation. So I think Rattler's going to have to move down with McShannock there, which is very formidable. But I do think the Seals just have an overall better the North Stars have a better defensive core when it comes down to it. I do give the advantage to the Seals when it comes to it for goaltending, but the North Stars have been on fire ever since the trade. They've lost 1 since then. I think you got to play the odds. You have to look at how things have been going, and I think you have to go with the North Stars when it comes down to it. But I think it's going to be a close one. I would be surprised if it's a sweep either way. I expect to go to 3 games, and it's going to be tight.
I think another thing too is, like I was kind of mentioned, alluding to a little bit earlier, if the Seals keep the kind of lineup you mentioned, where they don't have where they keep McShannock up forward and Whoop staying back at defense, I don't know if that necessarily works. But I mean, if you put Doc and Gio up against Doc and Gio up against Pfister, Shawnee, and Whoop, and you ask the league, or league-wide, you ask which line is overall a better line. That's a really tough question, but in my opinion, overall speed-wise, I'm giving it to Pfister and Shawnee because they're slightly more complete players than Gio is, and then it just comes down to Whoop and or whichever one matches up, whether it's Fister or Gio matches up on him, and then the other one gets to go head to head with Doc, and then it's Whoop and Ty fighting each other on the one wing the entire time. The whole Whoop
and I know Ty has about 10 minutes worth of material, but I do have one other thing I'm going to say before you get to speak. Is I talked about this last week, and I truly believe it based on where we are, the lines you're playing, and everything like that. Whoop should be playing forward.
I mean, he has to. I mean,
Whoop is, like I've said before, he's been playing it with the K-Falcons. He's smart. He knows hockey. He can do breakout passes. He's got good hands. You get him in that situation there, all of a sudden you have McShannock back at defense with Dylan as the goalie. You have Matt Lapudre in there as well.
Yeah, that's who you'd pair together. You'd pair McShannock and Lapudre together at that point because Alan Z and Leroy have been playing together the entire season. So then
you
there's
have
your
two
top
tier defensive pairs that are lockdown combos with Dylan back there. The North Stars are going to have trouble scoring goals. They still have Fister, Shawnee there. You have Rattler on another line.
You have Rattler
with Neville. It's all good there.
You're
going to be able to score goals. The defense is going to be shutting things down. If I knew that Whoop was playing forward, I would probably take the Seals. I think Whoop has too much pride of this is his position. This is where he plays to actually move what's best for the Seals. And I don't think he's going to do it.
I think he would consider it at maybe, and that's what I was saying earlier. I alluded to that first game could go the North Stars' way, and then Seals might have to make adjustments game 2 and then try to win game 3. But if they come out game 1 with the proper adjustments they should make, I think that it could work out. Because the biggest thing when the North Stars plays, they run like a two-man forechecking system with both their lines effectively until they get a lead. Then they sit back and 1-1-3 effectively, or like a Christmas tree, right? Like they just sit back and they let you come in over the blue line. So I mean, we've had this discussion in the Tigers channel so deep and so long. I from what I've seen on the ice, I mean, I don't need to go so deep into it, but the point being that if you have defensemen that are susceptible to the pressure from Pete, from Troy, because Troy likes to skate deep and behind the net, especially when he's on the second game, from Doc, from Gio, and you can cough up the puck back there, make turnovers, North Star is going to put 8 past you. But if you have guys back there that can make the good first outlet pass or are comfortable and not nervous with the puck on their stick and can beat that first forechecker, you trap the first 1 or 2 forecheckers, you get counter passes the other way, and you can hit people in the seam. That's game 2, that's what we did. So, I mean, I'm not saying the blueprint is laid for the Seals, but they have an idea that they can use something for their advantage to see how they can beat the North Stars. While the North Stars, I mean, at this point, they kind of know after playing the Tigers and from other people in the league seeing, probably from hearing from me, just Raz and Troy and Ty and whatnot, they kind of know what like their weaknesses are, and they can kind of adjust their lineup. I mean, who says Troy has to be a forward the entire series? Maybe game 1 doesn't work out. Troy's played defense before. You could always switch Edge and Troy, and then you literally do have 2 power forward lines, and then you slot in Troy along with somebody else. I don't know, like Sikorsky and then you have Marvin and Maff, and then you just have your center forward sit in that triangle system down low, kind of like we did with Skillman, and then you just force the Seals to beat you. Because I think they would admit, and I think everyone else in the league would kind of admit, that Fister and Shawnee, for as good as they are, neither one of them have like a long range firepower, like a McCracken type or a Matt Lapudre or a pistol slap shot type from the blue line. They're not going to beat you that way. They're going to beat you tic tac toe and getting in close and breakaways. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I'm on board with you.
Now, Ty, I know you're going to have something to say. Let's make it quick, and then we'll wrap things up.
I'll try to be brief. I would like to take my little moment for my prediction to thank the Tigers. I think they had an amazing. I honestly, why I enjoyed the series was because they didn't, Spicy, who crawled under a rock and disappeared and pretended to have an injury.
Oh my God. I wish I didn't have an injury.
Honestly, no, but honest to God, Skillman came out and made some. I enjoy MNL. It's not MNL. We just play hockey. MNL is like the camaraderie. It's the drinking beers after the game. It's the slack in between. It's me sending Joey articles that he doesn't want to fucking read.
He doesn't want to open up and
fucking thing.
Spam.
I don't even text her back.
MNL is more than just hockey. If it was just hockey, it'd be another fucking hockey. And what I enjoyed about the Tigers was that they kind of opened up and punched back a little bit, because it's no fun punching. And when they, if you play the Whalers and they fucking all shut up and have a gag order or no gag order, but they just gag order themselves, whatever it is. I've had many series like that. the thing that made it fun about the Tigers was, and I appreciate Skillman. I think Skillman is a great GM, and he kind of opened up and fought back, and it made it a completely fun series all the way around from Monday. You know, you got to wait Monday to Monday for the games, and I thought I appreciated the tit for tat and the back and forth on Slack. I also thought they did a great job in trying to confuse us and took us to the limits and did a great job of doing things to try, quitting Chris Taylor. And I would like to personally thank Chris Taylor, because after that first game when we won 8-2, I mean, I saw both Taylors blowing a gasket, especially Chris. Matt was hurt, obviously, and he was mad because Gio hooked him or whatever. But Chris Taylor, honestly, after game one, I didn't even know if he was ever going to come back again. He was freaking slamming shit, screaming at his own teammates. And he came back and he competitive as always, but it was very, very calm, cool, and collective, and made the series what it should be at MNL. And that's competitive, beat your brother's ass, try to beat your brother's ass, but with respect and cleanliness. So that going on to the predictions, obviously, I mean, I think the Seals, they're going to battle. No, listen, real quick. The Seals are going to battle. I respect Todd and Shawnee as GMs to a point. I think that they have no. I don't think they're going to do what they think is right. If they think Todd should play forward, they're going to play him forward. They're not going to be scared. And I don't think there's any coincidences. The WBW playing Todd at forward. Do I think that's any coincidence? No. I think he's testing it out, thinking how it works. Do they win? Do they win with that? Do they feel good with that? So I don't think there's any coincidences that we've always kind of used the other leagues as kind of like that we've ran as like the testing ground and, as to what to do. So if whatever he felt is right in that, if it's to play forward, he will do it. That being said, I think we are going to be too much, and we will have ability to adjust on like what Hedda said. If Troy, I like that idea that Troy can play defense as well and bring edge up. That sounds good to me. If we need to do it. But I think we were going to have too many places for them. And the fact that Pellet's missing is a big one. And I like Simonelli, but Pellet's been that one of those guys where you got above average for where you drafted him. Him missing the first two games, I don't think he's going to see a game. And it's sad. He's not going to see a keg Stanley Cup because they're going to win 2-0. I think they're going to be close contested games, but I think we're going to come out on top both games. So
thanks, Ty.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, Joe, love to thank you again for coming on the show. Do you have anything you want to close us out with, or any subjects?
Do you want to leave a prediction? Because Troy asked you to leave prediction, and also the fans on the chat also had another question to ask you from a couple seasons ago, I guess. Apparently,
oh shit! About grudges. Is this the grudge portion?
No, this is a different question. So I mean, I don't know if you want to answer the one question about Troy asked earlier. About what was it about? Something about who would win the series? If you predict which team's going to win the series.
I don't know.
I mean, I know it's impartial.
I don't think that's a good area for
I
Joe
don't know.
to go
I think that we go out there. I mean, the last series were good examples. I think North Stars go out and win that first game by a bunch, and then they lose the second game by a bunch. I think anything can happen. Nothing would really surprise me one way or the other.
And then the other question that was posed in the chat from your GM truly, my ex GM, Troy Sniper Otto was ask Cubes about McCracken. Now I don't know.
Nobody
if he's
cares about McCracken. McCracken's not even in the league anymore.
I don't want to say that, but that's what Troy asked to ask you about was about McCracken.
Joey doesn't care about individual players, anything like that. It's a dumb question.
He wants McCracken to be back for the finals. I keep begging McCracken, but according to Todd, who golfed with him on Sunday, he's bigger and whiter than ever. I don't know what that means. You can take that for whatever you want.
Oh, but, that's gonna be the secret guy. It's gonna break Doc's neck in the corner. There goes another collarbone.
There you go.
Hey.
I just hope the Seals keep it clean. They've been known to take people out, and I just want everyone to have a safe series. I don't know. The Seals seem to be taking people out left and right, and it's not that serious. So please don't hurt our players. I mean, we're very scared. We're very concerned. That's all we've been talking about all day is about how tough you guys are.
So again, thank you for coming out. I hope you had a good time overall.
Yeah, it was a pretty easy walk, so we probably can get over here again. I mean, now Ty knows where I live, so
yeah, that's a scary thing. All right.
I guess not that. So for all the fans that have stuck with us, I don't know if you know about it, but spring is obviously coming up, and spring season is coming up, and with Proctor being injured, and not being able to play, obviously means there's a GM, not obviously, but there's a GM slot open because he was slotted in to be a GM in spring. So, I don't know if Panny's already got someone lined up. I mean,
No.
maybe Joe can come play. When's the last time you played? You want to play? I mean, he's got some high level hockey.
I like that.
GM a team.
Why don't we get you back in the action for the
It
spring?
could, yeah.
Sounds like you might be too good of a hockey player.
No,
For Proctor, Proctor's number 1 overall. He could draft himself number 1, baby.
Skate him up.
Yeah, no, I
think
usually.
I think there's some Tigers or Whalers would like to get you out there and see.
Yeah,
No, I'm just
yeah.
joking. I'm kidding. We're
No,
not-
I usually play in the spring and summer with some of the guys that I grew up with. I haven't played in the winter in a season or two, but I could probably play a game or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something for the spring.
I
would
don't.
be
I
fun.
don't.
All right.
Yeah. I just based off what
Spring
you were
is-
saying about playing club hockey college teams, you might be too good. I don't know.
No, that was years ago, and
Our theory on spring is it's just spring, so it actually is very.
I hate that phrase.
I like it because as a referee, because they have refs that just do solo games.
yeah,
And when Sugar starts yelling at me like, "You missed that icing," I'm like, "It's only spring." And then he just looks at me and says, "Fuck you, Ty." But I'm like, "It's only spring."
I hate that. That's the dumbest shit. It's only winter.
I'm only one ref.
It's only winter.
only spring.
It's only second degree
yeah.
murder.
Is it the same times, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically,
Yeah.
everybody says it's just spring when you're on the team that's losing. I remember when
No,
I got
it's-
drafted
it
on the
is way
clause
more
pause. It
laid
was
back.
not a.
It is more
way
laid
was
back.
not
laid
exactly
back.
fun,
If you say it's not more laid back,
It
you
is
know
more
it
laid
is.
back. You don't
It's
get the
fair.
jerseys, but
No one cares.
my team might.
It's
But
it's more laid back, but it still stinks if you get stuck on a team that isn't very good and that you're having. You just know you're going to lose majority of the games.
Well, it's
But
like 6
again,
weeks.
thanks for coming on. Like I was saying before, we were looking for a couple guys that aren't a SEAL, aren't a North Star, that would be willing to pay attention to the games, kind of come in next couple weeks to be on the podcast. Doesn't have to be a full 3-week commitment, but it'd be nice to get those impartial views about what happened
Yeah, like
in the
Dougie
game.
Fresh. Dougie Fresh should get back out here.
Stop.
Oh.
And as always, give us a call on the Whoop line, 714-75-WHOOP. Email the show, podcast at MNLHL.com. What else do you have for us, Ty? I know you got more.
No, I'm pretty much done. I appreciate it's hard coming on the second back-to-back weeks. I don't like to
he's all
overflow
he's
the
all
league.
tuckered out.
I don't like to overflow the week with me, but I do enjoy my time here, and I appreciate you inviting me. And thanks, Joe, for coming out. And
Not too bad. You only took up like an hour of talking space today.
I'm
An
sorry,
hour
I do
before
the
you
best I
pod.
can.
So we're over. Bye.